Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to this panel. Overall, I think we have got a very young panel. Trust me, these guys are in the trenches, trying to understand and navigate this space. And this new category creation will happen through dedicated startups and companies who are really invested in the space. And there are a lot of learning. We started with certain hypotheses when the space was very nascent 4 or 5 years back, and we have a lot of successes and loads of failure. And here we are. So essentially, I want you guys, since you are here, you should have some takeaway. Whether you are an interested consumer, you are a business in the space, you are a potential investor, or already someone who is invested in the space. We'll try to, gather some information from our honorable panelist, and I'll also try to share my experience of running GoodDot, which is India's largest plant-based meat company. So I'll start with Abhay. Can you please, give your introduction and take it from there?
Thank you, Abhishek. My name is Abhay Rangan. I'm the founder of One Good, which was then acquired by a pioneering superfoods company called Nourish You. Today I'm representing Nourish You in this capacity.
Thanks, Abhay. So Abhay is a very value-aligned entrepreneur. He has started his roots as an activist, animal activist, and he's very young, and he has taken bull by the horn. He was one of the first company and one of the most successful company in the plant-based dairy space. And now they have joined hands with Nourish You, one of the leading superfood brands of India. And I think I'm very excited about the next stage of their growth. So welcome, Abhay.
Very kind words, and thanks for all the inspiration, Abhishek.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have Aditya from Bagri. So Aditya, can you please introduce yourself?
A very good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aditya Bagri. I represent a brand called Bagri's. So we've been a group which has been entrenched in the food processing ecosystem in India for the last 50 years. We've been grain millers for multiple generations. And around 30 years ago, we started our own brand of health foods and breakfast cereals. And we've pioneered categories like bran, oats, and muesli in India. We've predominantly been focused on a health and wellness, platform, and the intent is to build Bagri's as one of India's most trusted health food brands. And a large part of what we do now is plant-based and vegan. In fact, we've done lots of innovations now in entering into the plant-based beverage space, which has been our first beverage launch last year. But more than anything else, I'm here to learn from everyone who seems to be a subject matter expert on, plant-based, to just understand how this ecosystem is evolving, and we are quite excited about the space as well.
Thanks, Aditya. So before we proceed to Palak, while I was having conversation with Aditya on the sideline, one interesting thing which came about was that their approach, Bagri's approach to enter the plant-based dairy category. So normally it so happens that any bigger brand which enters into a new category, they create a lot of buzz. But I think Bagri's took a different route, and now they are on the advent of creating that buzz. So Aditya, can you share that knowledge with our audience?
Sure. So I think, in general, that's not just plant-based dairy, but a lot of how we approach new product has always been, with that intent. So unlike large multinational organizations where, you spend years on R&D and then launch a product, with the full might, of marketing behind it, what we've understood is that it's better, and I'm paraphrasing Mr. Harsh Mariwala, to do quick market research and then launch the product and then improvise on it, along the way. So when we entered plant-based beverages, we were very clear that we did not want to go very aggressive with the launch. So we decided to launch it online only, and that's, the context of the panel also, which talks about omni-channel. So we decided to launch it exclusively online on e-commerce, and decided to create a range of products where we did not take the largest category of plant-based currently, which is soy milk, but instead focused on almond, oat, and a very innovative blend of oats and nuts in the right proportions to give a very creamy mouthfeel and an experience as close to real milk as possible. And launched it exclusively online, focused on a few select channels to understand what was working, and then push it out to other medium as well.
Thanks, Aditya. Very innovative approach. Very contrarian also. Not while they have the might, they didn't push the marketing budget on the product. They put it out there on online marketplace or D2C, and based upon what product was working, now they have finalized a set of products which are now going to push. So now we have Palak from Vegan First, one of the pioneering vegan publication out of India. So Palak, can you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Abhishek. We are from Vegan First. We are a leading vegan media and events company and a community platform for the entire ecosystem. We started around 2017, and over the years we've helped more than 100 brands, reach out to their target consumers, and it's very for over maybe 2,000 products. So it's very interesting to see the dynamics with which different consumers explore different kind of products, and we've seen the ecosystem grow from just a couple of lakhs to now some millions of audiences. So that's been a very interesting journey, and we feel that more and more people are rooting for the plant-based category now and the space, and they themselves have felt the benefits. So this will be an interesting discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Palak. So we have Romil with us from Plantaway, and they are in an extended range of products, and they have a great background in production of I believe ice creams, right, Romil? Can you give a background of those ice cream production and why you entered into the space, and a bit of an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I think Plantaway sort of evolved into what it is and came under the umbrella of Gravis Good Foods. Now Gravis has been in the food space for 80 plus years.
80 plus years?
Yes. I mean, Gravis was synonymous with India's largest homegrown ice cream brand, Qualities, back in 1941.
So the company, the Quality brands belongs to Gravis. I didn't know.
So Quality ice cream, of course, in India was sold to Unilever in the mid-1990s, and so today is Quality Walls. But we have a bunch of other businesses within the group. I think about 2019, 2020 is when we sort of took a conscious call to set up Gravis Good Foods. And Gravis Good Foods clear focus is the better for you space. So no matter what health journey you're on, no matter what lifestyle diet you're on, we have something for you. And we have two brands within that. We have a brand called the Brooklyn Creamery, which is better for you ice creams.
Can you tell the name?
We have another brand called the Brooklyn Creamery.
Brooklyn Creamery, yeah.
But today we'll talk about Plantaway.
Yeah. Okay.
Plantaway was the second brand that we launched within the Gravis Good Food space. And Plantaway's approach was not to look at a single category, because I've spent almost 3 decades in food service, hotels, restaurants, banquets, catering, and I think we looked at it more from a solutions approach standpoint.
Got it.
So rather than have an alt meat category, an alt milk category, dips, dressings, mayos, we said, look, let's look at what food service wants, because I think we sort of believed that let me be a partner to someone who's going to serve the end customer. So we're sort of B to B to C in a certain extent when we started. And today, of course, we do have retail and we do have presence across various, since we're talking about omni-channel. And so we were able to sort of provide a plant-based food solution to entire menu solutions. You need a burger, you're not just going to put a alt meat patty in it. You need to butter the bun, you need mayo, you need cheese. So we're across the spectrum. Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. And I think now is when things are really coming to fruition.
Absolutely. So I think, guys, it's very, very relevant what Romil just said. So as he mentioned, he comes from a food service background. When we talk about omni-channel, we talk about direct to consumers, B2C, and we also talk about B2B. So where he comes from, he wanted to act as a single window solutions. We have seen even bigger retailers out of India, if you go with a couple of products, they are not interested. They want a range of products. So same goes, they have an excellent back-end experience in ice creams and other foods. So thereby, they have coupled that experience and went with the complete range of solution, right from plant-based meat to butter to cheese and everything. So that really works very well. So if, for example, a Marriott would like to deal with one brand which is supplying everything together. So I think that is where these guys' strengths comes about. So really fantastic, and that is some playbook. If someone like we have in the audience also Plant Made, that's a company which is aggregating a lot of products and also giving not at this scale but also giving at a significant scale those kind of solutions. So that there is also an opportunity. You don't have to manufacture everything yourself. If you are a good aggregator, I think you can go with a good first of all, good basket of products, and also at a very affordable and cost competitive price point. You can set it off. Some products will be low margin, others will be higher margin, so you can have a good basket created. So I think that's a very important opportunity in the space. Now coming to Abhay. So Abhay, what had been, so you were one of the leaders in the plant-based dairy space, and you did a great job in curating the products for dairy. What were the challenges you faced, and which are the learnings based upon those challenges while you were selling those plant-based dairy products?
Thank you, Abhishek. I think us being cold chain has remained a sticking point, and I think, of course, GoodDot famously did shelf stable very early on to prevent these issues. We were able to do so with milk, for example, where Tetra Pak is an easy, maybe some people use retort packaging as well, or retort-friendly packaging rather. I think for other products that are more texture sensitive, cold chain sometimes becomes a must for things like curd, etc. And these were hard categories that nobody had attempted before for the simple reason that it wasn't a proven category. And we said somebody has to do it, so let us do it instead. And these are also easy opportunities to sort of get market share in that specific category and also build it out. I'd say our learning remains that sort of piggyback on existing sort of dairy supply chains is meaningful because trying to build it yourself can be very challenging. And as we scale, sort of, we went through a 0 to 1 journey, probably trying to go through a 1 to 10 journey right now. The importance of using existing supply chains that have that economies of scale, the barrier is always access. And through our acquisition, maybe now that access barrier is not so much there. We're truly able to see that 1 to 10 journey through.
No, this is where I think both your openness to learn from your challenges and also your mission alignment came through, because someone like Nourish You, which is into superfoods, right? They have larger strength in terms of outreach, and tying up with them, there's a force multiplier for you guys. What do you say?
Absolutely. I think, and I'm quite excited to be in this panel because there's a significant amount of muscle here for the category, right? It could be in terms of access, it could be in terms of capital, distribution, touch points, and so on. I'm excited for the fact that Nourish You's muscle is now behind the plant-based space in a very meaningful way. They're putting money, people, a whole bunch of other resources, tangible and intangible, into this. That is very exciting to us, and I think prediction that I think even Mr. Sanjay Sethi made some time back is that more and more muscle will come into this category, and that's great. I'm a big fan of seeing that happen, and personally, I have a front row sort of access to seeing it unfold. It's very exciting.
No, absolutely, I agree. It's quite exciting. What's not really as exciting is, that's my own individual perception, is the financial muscle and the willingness of the big brands, without taking names, who are well capitalized, who can create the category. Most of those companies have generally dipped their toes in the space. What they have done is they have just marked up the products and expected the consumer to pay the premium pricing of the product. Whereas what they should have accounted for is basically the future economies of scale, and price the product at that particular price point, so that the consumer is not ready to sacrifice, is not made to sacrifice to create the category. And that holds true even for the hospitality space also. I think most of the starters have been left with all the heavy lifting, and since most of us are absolutely mission aligned, we will do that. But I think the larger companies, I think there's a lot of gap. I think there's a lot of, testing the waters in their attitude. There's not much conviction coming through, whereas I can say with all sincerity, being in this space for so long, that the plant-based meat and dairy category is a huge latent opportunity in India. And I'll share as we go along, but yeah, that I just wanted to put it across. Yeah.
To GoodDot's credit, I think a lot of plant-based products are priced around $299, $300, $350. GoodDot broke the mold first, and there's many companies that have done it since as well. Not many, actually, a few. But I think this benchmarking around specific price points with specific weights, I think it's good to see that. I mean, GoodDot, of course, led that.
See. Either you should have a lot of money to burn, maybe a Nestle who created Maggi. Maggi was not a category in India. They made students have free Maggi all across. Very few people would know that tea was not very endemic to India. When the Opium War in China came, Britishers didn't have any outlet to the tea plantation. So they made Indians drink tea across all the roads and the corners of the streets. And we grew into a tea, consuming nation. We grew into for a Nestle, a Maggi consuming nation. So the total investment is hardly anything let alone, you know, creating a category in this space. But even despite that, there are huge sparks in the space. The flame is yet to come, but I believe that we are around the corner with some of the experiences we'll share. So great to have Aditya, who is from a legacy brand and at an owner level. So there is a challenge. Many a times when you have to take bigger calls, one cannot expect, you know, regular professionals to take those calls. You know, there are leaders who can take those calls and they have to prove themselves. But guys like Aditya, being from a legacy background, diving headspace and, you know, being in this charge of the ship, I think it's augurs well. So Aditya, what's your take on that?
Abhishek, thank you so much for, you know, such kind words. But I can say that at a promoter, founder, you know, whether it's a startup, whether it's a legacy brand, a lot of the mind space is the same. And you touched upon, you know, the big brand problem. So, and this is not just plant-based; it's every category. I think the journey of 0 to 1 and 1 to 10, also what Abhay touched upon, is not typically where a lot of large brands are able to operate, because what you know is great for large food brand ecosystem is the ability to take things from 10 to 100 and from 100 to 1000. I think that's where they thrive. So I think that's where a lot of the heavy lifting across every category is typically done by startups or, you know, businesses. And I think for two reasons beyond capital. And it's not like large brands haven't entered into the plant-based space. Many have tried, and like you said, you know, they've just brushed the surface and expected that, you know, it'll happen on its own. I think there's focus and passion which goes missing, because it's too small to put financial muscle, and it's also requires someone to put a lot of passion behind it, because the scale which you achieve initially may be suboptimal to what you could do with many other things, and hence it has to be built from a very long-term outlook. I think the decision for us to be in the plant-based space was easy, because we've been in the space of breakfast cereals and health foods. Many things that we make are naturally vegan. We have, you know, sugar-free mueslis which are vegan. We do a whole bunch of things. The only animal product we've typically used is honey, and essentially, you know, focused a lot on the plant-based space, and you know, worked a lot around themes which are popular now, including millets, including probiotics, including other things. But I think looking at the trend of, you know, how impactful the plant-based journey has been, we took an early call to enter the beverage space, and we chose the plant-based beverage space, and the intent was to extend the brand into beverages, but do it with something that's a complement to what we do, and also not a space which is ultra massy, because we wanted to enter the space and we wanted to actually create products which we believed were good. So the plant-based beverages we make, I'm happy drinking them myself. I feed them to my son who's 3 years old. He's dairy allergic. So, you know, there's a lot of passion behind what we do, and it's something that I think is a key difference between you know, a large brand trying to sell a product and you know, a small brand trying to scale and drive a product. Eventually consumers need to love what you sell, and I think today capital, the ability to scale, channel access, the barriers to entry have reduced significantly than a decade back. So I think if you've got all this mixed right, you know, most of these things eventually follow.
Oh, thanks Aditya. An interesting fact which Aditya pointed out was Bagri's being very much you know, entrenched in the breakfast cereal space. Getting into plant-based dairy was an organic extension. So that goes really well with the breakfast cereal. So now coming to Palak. Palak, you have been you know, sitting at a very macro level, seeing the entire space pan out. So what do you think, you know, were the challenges of the space and which are still the challenges of the space? How will you enumerate the challenges with the space of both plant-based meat and plant-based dairy is facing as on today?
Thanks, Abhishek. See, the thing is that we need to understand that for a new category, it's very important for people to first create the need. And that is where a lot of heavy weight lifting, like you said, right, needs to be done. And this is exactly which a lot of brands don't want to do. And this will go for any other mission-aligned cause, be it sustainability, be it animal rights, be it health. You know, everybody wants to make good products for a bigger purpose, but the heavyweight listing is just left to few people. But here is where I think the community comes together, and that is something which if a brand starts to leverage, right, it will give them very fast access and fast growth. Omnichannel doesn't just mean that collecting sophisticated consumer data and then growing the brand. Here today, the consumer trend has changed. People go, even if you're attending a festival, they will first go onto an Instagram, see what the festival is about, understand it. If they resonate with it, then they'll go and book the ticket, even if it's on ground. And the consumer behavior with purchase also says the same thing. That and that could be in any form. The communication could be in any form, be it even if it's not a Gen Z consumer, it's an older consumer. They will still want to see have a brand recall either in a television or radio or your newspapers. So it's very important for brands to know that when you're building a category, right, just putting the product out there, you can test the waters, like Aditya rightly said, right, just to get some consumer insights. But while you're entering a new category, when people don't know why they need your product, true buying cannot happen over a sustained period of time. There can be first tries, but how do you create repeat consumers? And I think that is, if that is understood by brands, then they're already prepared for the marathon. Here, most of us just want to do a sprint and say, all right, I've done some amount of, maybe marketing, some advertisement, I've introduced the product, you've collected initial data, but it's not picking up as much. Now, just for instance, like plant-based meats, like you said, right, the way soya chap has disrupted the market, truly no other plant-based meat alternatives has been able to disrupt it yet. But even in a country like India, where vegetarianism is latent. If you quit meat, it's okay to be a vegetarian. You still don't have to crave for an alternative. But soya chap was still able to create that need and still be a go-to category when you go and have, your meals. Because it was many players coming together, right? Positioning it right, creating it right, Indianizing it. So definitely a category can be built. Another side of the story is that we have no option because we don't have a planet B. Whether people like it or not, whether bigger companies or smaller companies like it or not, the way the food system is currently set up, brands need to be sustainable in all formats, be it dairy or meats, and for different motivations. Then they do need to have a macro vision to grow this category, which requires some kind of engagement, talking about your brand, then of course sales. So one biggest challenge that I've seen that brands face is that they're not ready to do sometimes the weightlifting that it needs to educate the consumer, right? We just want a ready consumer who's already hungry for a product like yours and they start it. But India is changing and the audience and Gen Z are changing. They want products and services which are meaningful, which resonate with them. So if you play smart, the opportunity is huge and untapped. So today, if the brands are just marketing or not marketing, but putting out the products, creating brilliant products, but not able to create the needs as well, communicate the need as well, you won't be able to get that much ROI that you can get possibly. So it does take a little effort, additional effort to educate the consumer, but we ourselves have seen a massive ROI, something very simple. We recently did a festival in Delhi. We called it a Green Diwali festival. It was a vegan event. We didn't even call it a vegan event. But we had a plant-based meat brand, and just by making so many people try and educating them what it was, doing a cooking challenge, making people try the product, they directly saw a 30% increase in sales in that region. But it didn't come by just showcasing the meat product. It came by answering people's questions about the objections they have. So any new category and brand needs to develop that kind of effort to really educate that consumer. And it is a marathon. It doesn't happen overnight. But I'm so happy that there are so many amazing players such as yourself, right, who have actually made it easier for other brands to follow. And we have a Vegan India conference coming up in Bombay on the 6th, 7th of July. So we exactly help you connect to that community and encourage whoever who is serious about the space to please come and attend that event as well. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thank you, Palak. So Palak did mention about soya chap. All of us would have had soya chap. One interesting thing about soya chap, there are no major players in the space. And that's a massive market. It's upwards of 1,000 crore annual revenue market. Why has that taken us? You know, from GoodDot perspective, what we have learned is soya chap is sold in a loose format in Delhi in a B2B level around 70 rupees. So when you compare with a paneer, which is probably 300, 350 rupees a kg, or a chicken at around 250 rupees a kg, it makes sense for business institutions to take soya chap, add whatever, you know, cream and butter on them, and give the value proposition to the end consumer. So I think price India, if you have to know your consumer, you have to know your product. If your price point is massy, target the masses. If your price point is not massy, it's premium, forget about the masses. So you have to pick your battles. That is very, very relevant. You cannot cater to everyone. That holds true for plant-based dairy. That holds true for plant-based meat. I'll give you an example before I go to Romil. Recently we had a great, so I'll make a very strong statement based upon our learning. There's no market for plant-based meat in India. There's a market for plant-based protein. So why I'll tell you it is backed upon our own experience is that think about, you know, when I tell it is a mock chicken product and there are two set of clear consumer group. One is a vegetarian, another is a non-vegetarian. For a vegetarian, mock chicken, the word chicken is a turn-off. So that is very intuitive. You understand that he may not really like to try it or he will criticize the product. But what is not intuitive is that the meat eaters themselves don't want to try mock chicken or mock mutton. Because what we are essentially doing by this very nomenclature, we are setting benchmark. Expectations, benchmark expectations. Suppose any of you who eats meat or a chicken, I give you a mock chicken tikka and there's a 10 or 15% variation because this is not chicken, this is plant-based, then you will focus on the gap between chicken and the product. And your final assessment will be more of a criticism rather than acceptance. So this has happened with Tibbs Frankie. We recently launched with Tibbs Frankie in Mumbai. Great, it's a legacy brand with 350 outlets, 60 of them in Mumbai. Almost 7 to 8% of their rolls, they are known for their Frankie and rolls, is now our product. And why? Because they have very geniusly, they have named the product as Proti Roti. So it has got nothing to do with meat. It has got nothing to do with meat alternative. They have just named it Proti Roti. So people are hungry for good products, not setting benchmarks. So that's my experience, our experience here at GoodDot. I would like to take, intake of Romil on this. Romil, what do you think on those lines? You know, because we initially also named our product very close to meat, unmutton, veg chicken, but we realized that there is a resistance in consumer mindset. So we are moving away from that nomenclature. So what's your take on that?
So I think the most relevant thing is what you said a few minutes ago, that you have to decide who your audience is and who you're targeting. If you are going after a vegan and you know that it's someone, the audience you're going after is someone who was non-vegetarian and now has turned vegan, then your communication is very different. And I think the larger picture becomes, especially since the core focus of where we want this conversation to go is omni-channel, definitely awareness. It's changing because while a large percentage of the population may be lactose intolerant, they don't know it because we're a country that's been built on dairy. You missed your breakfast, beta ek glass doodh pilo. You're not feeling well, haldi doodh pilo. Not feeling too good, not too hungry, dahi khalo. It's just us by nature. When it comes to meat, while actually 70% of this country eats meat, and we're not a vegetarian country, it's not a daily occurrence like it is the West. In the West, a meal is very different. It's protein, which is usually meat, it's vegetable, and it's carb. Their meals are structured differently from ours. So I think one is creating the awareness for the various categories that we're selling. Two is the most important thing for food is taste. Until you taste it. So sampling is going to play the most important role. Now, how do you get sampling out? The only way to get sampling out is to make sure that your product is available in the right size also, which typically a lot of people tend not to do because you're thinking retail. You're thinking, oh, if I'm doing bulk and I'm going to a hotel, then I need to, institutional, then I need to do 1 kg, 2 kg, 3 kg. If I'm doing even a dairy product, a dairy alt, and I think that's something that One Good did fantastically. You guys had a 200 ml product, you guys had a small SKU, which everybody else had a 1 liter SKU. How do you get sampling in? Because even when you think about getting that engagement, and then someone said, hey, listen, I want to try. Okay, I want to try. I'm the only one in the house who wants to try. If I buy a 1 liter Tetra Pak of something and I open that Tetra Pak and it says, please use in 3 days, please use in 5 days, I'm going to waste it. One, that may align with my health goal, but most people who are moving away from or moving to a plant-based diet also have a fairly large affinity to sustainability. In fact, some of the surveys show that most people are moving towards it because they truly care about the planet, they truly care about sustainability. Once you've got those two aspects down, availability and distribution is going to play a key. Today we know we're constrained for shelf space. Everybody wants, every retailer, every retail partner, whether it's e-com, Q-com, physical stores, everybody wants a product that's going to move fast. They don't want stuff that's going to sit in their shelf. If you're a frozen product or a chilled product, even less shelf space. If you don't have a small enough SKU, getting into Q-com is a problem. So I think there's so many factors that we need to keep in mind, especially in a category that's still relatively nascent. Doesn't matter whether it's non-dairy or whether it's alt meat. It's only if we get that mix right, and of course, let's park price aside for now. We won't even come to price right now. We have no choice really to price at a particular point, because to get entry into the door, if I'm an established player that has product that is mass, you know it's going to move off the shelf fast. You don't get into the listing fees, you don't get into the end caps, you don't get into the visibility. And even if it means having smaller packs that go out on e-commerce sampling, that's the only way to build that stickiness and advocacy. And the biggest challenge that I think we face, all of us face, is that, and this is a conversation that I had in Dubai 2-3 weeks ago when Sanjay ji and many people in this room, including the team from PlantMate, was there. It's interesting when you look at food versus any other category. We all know fast fashion. We all buy various fast fashion brands. Now I may go to X brand and I'll buy something and it costs 2,000 rupees. I know if I wash it 5 times, I have to throw it away. I will still go back to that brand. Not only will I go back to that brand, I'll go to its competitors as well. In the case of the category that we're in, I'll try your product, I'll say this is not nice, I don't buy anybody else's product, because it's already formed in my mind that there's a problem with the category. And that's the biggest challenge, I think. So, yeah, I mean, but hey, all of us are sitting here. We were here last year, we were here the year before. So clearly we're getting past all these challenges. And that's the most important thing.
No, definitely we are getting past the challenges, and I believe, many a times from our own experience when we collaborated with businesses, because think about it, maybe when we were very young, I think pizza came like I'm talking about 30 years back, pizza or cheese came first time in India. The first time, from my own personal experience, when I tasted cheese, I was expecting a taste of, say, a butter or a ghee or a malai, whereas it was something very tangy and not really what I was expecting. So the taste grew over me. Same goes for nachos. The first time I tried nachos, I was expecting a potato chips kind of a taste, but there was a strong corn taste, and that grew on us. Same goes for plant-based meat and plant-based dairy. So what Romil said is very relevant. As a brand, if some of you guys are out here, my advice will be, because we are undercapitalized as a space, and we are undercapitalized as a company to really create a B2C brand for a pan-India space. What we can definitely do, we can create in the own city. So if you are localized, think about Wingreens. In Gurgaon, they made people taste the dips in all the stores initially. And that's why people got used to hummus and all those kind of dips. And once the size grew, they increased their scale. We did this mistake when we raised our last institutional funding around $4-5 million, so that we went pan-India. We rolled in all the D-Marts, we rolled in all the Reliance, around 3,000 odd stores, and we recruited 250 promoters, which we could not really monitor whether they were doing sampling or not. Now if we raise fund, it will be only 1 or 2 cities, that's all. And just saturate that city, learn from there, and then build from there on. So I would say, since we have talked enough, I think if there are any questions for any of the panelists, I think it's most welcome. Hopefully you have got something out of this session. So please feel free if any of your doubts or any inputs on the conversation. Yeah, yes please.
Hey, thanks. It was really insightful. My name is Shabrish. I was head of Altco. Now, because of the love of animals, I quit Altco and joined HSI, which to fight a bigger battle. And my question to you guys is, the biggest problem today, right? One is vegan and other stuff. The biggest battle which most of the plant-based industry is currently facing is the GST part. How are you going to guys fight and get the GST down? Because it's going to make a significant difference in lowering the prices. So what is your take on that? If you can answer me that, because most of the products has around 18% GST, which is technically not fair, because it is injustice against the fight with dairy, which is at 5%.
Vegetables
GST.
don't have GST. They are all plant-based, right? So technically, I said vegetables don't have GST.
Unfortunately, it has oat milk, almond milk. Most of the products has.
Yeah, dairy and meat also don't have GST.
Sure. So you'll like to go on that? Yeah.
Sure. This is maybe more of a personal answer. I think for anybody to be interested in this category from a policy regulatory perspective, and we saw a lot of interest today already, but we can move serious things when we as a category employ a lot of people, really contribute to the growth story of India. Today the category is fairly small but emerging, as we all agree. But I think over time, as the category size grows and our share of GDP, our share of the vote bank increases, you are more likely to see representation of our interests in the right circles. I think we can of course make it today from a question of fairness, etc. But truly a lot of this is, and Abhishek may have some direct experience with this. The government needs to earn revenue, and they see this category as a way of earning small revenues, however small or large they may be. I think there are no easy answers except make our representations and also just fight it out and get to being much larger. Then we can have our own representations of our interests. I don't know if anybody else has something innovative to say on this regard. Maybe mine is a cynical take.
So Abhay, if I take on what you'd said, so this is typically the chicken and egg situation with GST in every category. And if I take a parallel example of breakfast cereals, so breakfast cereals largely is taxed at 18%. And the fastest growing breakfast cereal pack is actually a 10 rupee pack, which is penetrating, various shelves. What we've seen, and in general, I would say that having represented IT's, Indian Chamber of Commerce, as well as a bunch of chambers, there's a lot of push from the food processing sector to try and rationalize GST, not just in plant-based, and plant-based and vegan products as a category also transcends multiple categories. So, Romil mentioned that vegetables are GST free. There's something at 18%, there's something at 12%. And once we reach a certain scale, I think overall rationalization for products, either it's on the basis of, veganism, on the basis of sustainability, on the basis of millets which are being pushed, on the basis of Ayurveda, because there's so many avenues which the government's looking at, but it needs to reach a certain coherent voice and someone needs to, champion that. But till then, I don't see GST as a major deterrent in the entire process. If, one can get a 10 rupee breakfast cereal with 18%, GST on top of that, I'm sure we'll figure out, the plant-based thing. And even Abhishek mentioned that we have to understand the audience. So I think to a large degree, the willingness to pay for the audience pretty much absorbs the GST at the moment. As we reach scale, we'll touch price points where it wouldn't, and we'll have to go back to try and, negotiate for that.
No, I think very relevant. I'll just add a few pointers to it. Being from Indian Revenue Service as a background, I can take your questions on that. So I can very well say, as everyone mentioned, we are neither taxed like vegetables, which is 0%, or meat, which is 0%. So plant-based alternative category are starting at a disadvantage. Say 100-meter race, we are 18 meter behind the line. Forget about that. We also have subsidies which are given to dairy and meat companies. So we are probably 25 meters behind. And with a smaller scale of market, that's another 5 meters. So we start at, we 30 meters behind the line. So I think for the government, it's very easy to support the space because the revenue is negligible as compared to other space. For it to really grow into certain size, when you start cashing it out, I think there the scale needs to be, GST can be imposed. But right now, there's a good case for at least a very reduced or absolutely no GST, because sustainability is one of the focus area of government, and plant-based alternatives are universally proven as sustainable. So I do believe you have a valid point, the space has a valid point, but as Aditya mentioned, the voice is too feeble too small to really, make a policy change. But hopefully, I think that will change if someone really pays a heed to it. Yeah.
I'd like to add one more point. I think the classification of plant-based foods is also critical. Currently, it's all proprietary foods, and some taxation applies to that as well. I think there has been some push, and we'll probably hear more about this tomorrow as well, on having plant-based foods and vegan foods be their own separate category, which are regulated and taxed differently from that of proprietary foods. So I can tell you for plant-based milk, for example, we're taxed as, I think, a non-aerated beverage or something like that, in the same category as Red Bull or Pepsi, which, of course, Pepsi is aerated, but in a similar category. So the use case of these is vastly different, and certainly the intent of taxing these products was also from the perspective that whatever is used more, we'll tax it less, and whatever is maybe trending towards luxury consumption is taxed more. I think if we start calling plant-based foods in their own categories essential items, then we'll also see sort of ripple effects on GST in other places as well.
So I think thank you so much. It has been a great panel. I believe, there has been some learning for you guys. But rest be assured, plant-based meat, as Romil said, has been there for a while and is only going to grow from here. And good to have all of you, and thank you everyone for joining the panel. Really enjoyed moderating this, and thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. See you soon.